September 2017. Taylor Swift's Look What You Made Me Do is topping the charts. Donald Glover wins an Emmy for his acclaimed series Atlanta. The It remake is crushing it at the box office. And this night in Spartanburg, South Carolina, a wrestler who debuted in 1965 when Lyndon Johnson was president is about to wrestle his final match. This is the story of Terry Funk. The last time a wrestler laces up his boots can be hit or miss. Sometimes they go out on their own terms with a match they want. Other times, not so much. But no matter how good or bad a match may be, I don't think any final match encapsulates a man and his career more than that of Terry Funk. On September 23, 2017 in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Big Time Wrestling presented a legend-filled 6-man tag to bid farewell to the man from the Double Cross Ranch. Terry Funk and the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton, faced Brian Christopher, Jerry the King Lawler, and Doug Gilbert. Doug Gilbert is a name that Funk was very familiar with. However, it was a different Doug Gilbert than the one he'd stand across the ring from on this night. In his first year in the business in 1965, Terry would team with his father Dory Funk Sr. against Gas House Doug Gilbert and Rene Goulet. Dory Sr. was the co-owner of Western States Sports, the NWA territory based in Amarillo, Texas. So obviously Terry and his brother Dory Jr. became stars in the territory in no time. Throughout the late 60s and early 70s, Terry and Dory would win almost every title Western States had to offer, including 2 reigns as Western States Tag Team Champions. In 1970, Terry would make his first trip to Japan for the JWA. There he would team with his brother while also establishing himself as a single star, taking on the likes of Antonio Inoki. The Funks would be dealt a major blow in 1973 when Dory Sr. passed away of a heart attack. Dory Jr. and Terry immediately took over Western States Sports. The brothers were determined to continue the promotion's success, but also make it even more successful. Terry put his all into growing the business. They expanded the territory into Colorado and reopened New Mexico. This obsession with running the territory took its toll on Terry's personal life. He began to ignore his family. Everything took a backseat to business and the business. A few months after his dad's death, Terry's wife Vicky filed for divorce. As a distraction from the heartache, Terry dove even deeper into wrestling. Over the next 2 years, Funk traveled the world appearing for nearly every territory in the NWA. He worked St. Louis, the Carolinas, Florida, Kansas City, Dallas, Portland, Georgia, All Japan, Vancouver, and so many more. Finally, in December 1975, Terry would achieve what every wrestler set as their goal at the time. He had become the NWA World Champion. As NWA Champion, the pressure was on Funk more than ever to draw fans to the arenas in all the territories he worked. Once he got the belt, he knew he had to run with the opportunity. He wanted to wrestle as often as he could with it as long as he could. At the time, the champion received 10% of the gate. So the larger the house, the better the champ got paid. During his world title reign, Terry and Vicky reconciled. Funk knew that his anticipated 4-year run with the belt couldn't happen if he wanted his family back. With the championship came an increased schedule, even more hectic than the schedule he had before winning the belt. During his reign from 1975 to 1977, he would return as champ to all the previously mentioned territories, but would also start appearing in places like Alabama, Calgary, Louisiana, Toronto, and Memphis, where he first encountered Jerry the King Lawler in 1976. Another opponent in his final match, the King may have been Funk's greatest feud and opponent, certainly of the 70s. Lawler and Funk would battle each other in every decade and pretty much every match type leading up to this final encounter. But their most legendary match came in 1981 in front of a crowd of no one. The Empty Arena match. In April 1981, with Funk fed up with fans rooting on the King, he challenged him to a fight without anyone there to cheer his name. The two would brawl around the Mid-South Coliseum with Lance Russell calling all the action. Eventually, Lawler decides the Funker has had enough with Terry wailing about his eye, a spot that would become a hallmark of his matches to come.
That's right, his eyes hurt bad.
My eyes!
This night in Spartanburg, however, wouldn't be Terry Funk's first final match. That would be August 31st, 1983, when he once again teamed with Dory Jr. to take on Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy in All Japan Pro Wrestling. Hey, Mr. Funk, how long is this retirement gonna last? Terry would return to the ring a little over a year later in October of 1984, and it wouldn't take long for Vince McMahon and the WWF to come calling. Funk would make his way to New York in June 1985, having long feuds with the Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan. In fact, he had one of the more memorable Saturday Night's Main Event matches against Hogan in December of '85. According to Terry, when he made the decision to work for the WWF, there were some remaining NWA promoters that felt betrayed, that he was supposed to be loyal to the NWA. But he knew the writing was on the wall. They'd put up a fight and lost. Vince had won. There wasn't anyone to be loyal to anymore. Funk wouldn't last too long in the WWF, leaving in the spring of '86, and spend the majority of 1987 in All Japan with sporadic US dates. The sporadic matches would continue in 1988, while Terry filmed his iconic role in Roadhouse. Filming took 17 weeks, so that's over 100 days of bookings right there. And he was making about 10 grand a week on the movie, so he definitely didn't need to wrestle for a while. Funk would come back to wrestling in 1989, working some dates for the AWA, including a weird AWA-WWA All Japan joint show in Kansas City in February, WWA International Bash. Terry and Dory Jr. teamed once more to take on Doug Summers and Gary Young. The show would air on the February 18th edition of All Japan TV. This was a wild card and a pretty good show. Tenryu vs. Bill Irwin was pretty fun, actually. The event also featured another tag match with two legendary teams facing off. The British Bulldogs versus Terry Funk's partners for this final match, the Rock and Roll Express. Funk and the Rock and Roll Express would cross paths several times in their careers, including Smoky Mountain in the 1990s. The Funker would find his way back on American Wrestling TV in the spring of '89 when he returned to the NWA. Terry would debut simply as a commentator but quickly turned heel on Ric Flair at Wrestle War '89. The two icons would go on to have an epic feud throughout the year, and it's a highlight of both men's careers. This is arguably Funk's best run, right? His promos are amazing. Putting him alongside Great Muta and Gary Hart just works. It's really perfect. After this run, Terry Funk would kind of just become a nomad. By this point in his career, he developed enough of a reputation and goodwill among the fans that he could make his own schedule, be his own boss. If he wanted to take an indie booking in front of 100 people and have a 5-star match, he did that. If he wanted to take a booking with the biggest wrestling company in the world and pull off the show the morning of because his horse was sick, he did that too. Unconstrained by contracts and alliance loyalty, Funk was able to return to places like All Japan, debut for promotions like Catch Wrestling Association in Europe, and he would help elevate a young hardcore promotion known as Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW. By the time Funk came in, FMW was already well established and successful, but his arrival gave the outlaw Blood and Guts company legitimacy they hadn't had previously. They became a major player in Japan. Funk fit the promotion like a glove. He came in, got sliced, diced, exploded, and it's all so good. It was really an escalation of the middle-aged and crazy Terry Funk that came through WCW in '89. This foray into a hardcore-centric promotion wouldn't be isolated to just FMW, as Terry would have some amazing matches and moments with IWA Japan, like the Kawasaki Dream Tournament, a show that influenced countless wrestlers. He would also take his years of experience and goodwill with the fans and bring the Terry Funk experience to independent promotions around the United States. Funk found his way to places like Smoky Mountain in Tennessee, NWA New Jersey in New Jersey, National Wrestling Conference in Las Vegas, the United States Wrestling Association in Tennessee, and a little outfit in Philadelphia called Eastern Championship Wrestling. It was in ECW and these other independents where Funk would encounter the Gilberts, Eddie, and one of his opponents tonight, Doug. He would team with both Doug and Eddie like in USWA. He'd also battle both of the brothers like in ECW. In fact, it was Funk and Eddie Gilbert's feud on the Indies that first brought Terry into ECW. And that feud is so underrated, by the way. It really helped put the independent scene as a whole on the map. The corner of Swanson and Rittner would become a home for Funk for the next several years. However, he'd still work wherever and whenever he pleased, including a really entertaining, albeit brief run with WCW in 1994, teaming with Bunkhouse Buck as the stud stable with Colonel Robert Parker. And of course, the infamous Almost Survivor Series appearance in '93, where Funk was supposed to be unmasked as one of Shawn Michaels' knights, but fortunately or unfortunately, his horse got sick the morning of the show. Even with the major companies calling, Funk just kind of found his place in ECW. It was a real chance for him to give back to the business and help a small company grow. His feuds with Shane Douglas, Cactus Jack, and Sabu did exactly that. Funk merely being on the cards helped legitimize ECW, and the quality of those matches helped spread the word about this insane little promotion in Philadelphia throughout the country. Funker's crowning achievement with ECW is without a doubt his victory in the main event of their first pay-per-view, Barely Legal, in April of 1997, when he defeated Raven for the ECW World Championship. It was the perfect ending to the show, considering how much Funk meant to those fans, and how much his efforts meant to Paul Heyman and the company as a whole.
Thank Terry Funk for all he's done for this company, for help putting us on the map, for being unselfish in selfish times, for taking the young guys and showing them a better way. Tonight we have a chance to say, yeah, you're right. We're too extreme, we're too wild, we're too out of control, we're too full of our own shit. Or we have a chance to say, hey, fuck you, you're wrong. Fuck you, we're right. Because you have all made it to the dance. Because believe me, this is the dance. Start the show!
A few months later, on September 11th, 1997, Terry Funk would again retire from pro wrestling, holding a special show in his hometown of Amarillo, Texas. The event, titled Terry Funk's WrestleFest, was a combined effort of the WWF and ECW to celebrate the career and contributions of the legend. But obviously, we started our journey back in 2017. Well, 11 days later, Funk would come out of retirement once again, returning to FMW for a few shows. In December 1997, Terry Funk would re-emerge on national US TV for the WWF, this time under the moniker of Chainsaw Charlie. When he was approached by the WWF to return, Funk jumped at the opportunity to help the underdog that was the Federation at the time. It's hard to imagine now, but the WWF was far behind WCW in a lot of metrics. He also really wanted to be able to work with his friend Mick Foley. As for the Chainsaw Charlie character, well, that was all Funk's doing. The name and idea for the character was just something he came up with on the fly the day he was set to debut. And to quote Terry himself, "What an idiot."
I want Chainsaw to be dead. That was the most...
you don't like it?
Well, that was the most absurd thing that I ever came up with in my life, was Chainsaw Charlie. Chainsaw Charlie was not successful. Chainsaw Charlie, and I did another one time for Joe Blanchard down there. I came in 1 week. Lasted 1 week as Dr. Knows It All.
Although the gimmick may not have been the best, it did allow Funk and Foley to be crowned WWF World Tag Team Champions when they defeated the New Age Outlaws in a dumpster match at WrestleMania 14. So I'm glad I got to see at least one Terry Funk match in person. Very cool. The titles would be vacated the next night on Raw, however, because they used an unsanctioned dumpster. The Outlaws would win the belts back the same night. Chainsaw Charlie wouldn't last much longer after Mania, and we got back the middle-aged and crazy Funk in the WWF. He'd sometimes be a singles competitor, other times teaming with Too Cold Scorpio until finally settling into a trio with Bradshaw and Dustin Rhodes. The Texas Trio appeared together mostly on house shows and Shotgun Saturday Night, where he would have matches against the likes of Too Cool Scott Taylor and Brian Christopher, who Funk once again opposes tonight. However, Funk and Bradshaw did have a match as a tag team at In Your House Fully Loaded in 1998. Not long after that pay-per-view appearance, Funk again would leave the WWF, telling Vince that he felt his job was done and he'd helped as much as he thought he could. Vince thanked him for his work, and Terry was back on his way to the wild world of independent wrestling. He'd return to FMW and IWA Japan, and finally end up back on US television in January of 2000. When he had a year or so long stint in the twilight of WCW. Funk's time there was no different from anyone else in the 2000 WCW midcard. constant turnover with who he should have been dealing with on a day-to-day basis, storylines that just fizzled out without any explanation, and just an overall sense of turmoil at all times. Funk says in his book that working for a company he knew was doomed helped him have more fun. He did what he had to do, had a good time with the boys, and didn't worry about everything else going on. There's nothing particularly good in that run, but he had some fun matches with Dustin Rhodes and Chris Candido, including that scary moment in the horse stable where the horse kicked Funk in the head. Thankfully, the horse was tranquilized a bit, or the injuries could have been much worse. Once his year was up, Funk left WCW after the Sin pay-per-view in January 2001. From there, it was back to the indies for the next 15 years or so. Bigger promotions like MLW, XPW, ROH, PWG, and others, and of course the occasional shady promoter where Funk would have to chase them down for his pay. It was a hustle, but I'm not sure he'd have it any other way. And because he was Terry fucking Funk, he was always welcome in national promotions on both sides of the globe. He returned to All Japan not too long after the Pro Wrestling Noah exodus, and he was happy to try to help Mrs. Baba out of such a difficult situation. In 2010, he worked for New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom 4. Funk also made some appearances for TNA back in the Asylum days. He also famously chose not to take the big payday for One Night Stand 2005, and worked Shane Douglas's Hardcore Homecoming show instead. And we can't forget when he took the money and had that great brief run with the WWE to set up his tag match for ECW One Night Stand 2006. Lastly, and a cheap plug for the channel, he also appeared on the doomed Awesome Wrestling Entertainment pay-per-view that I reviewed. Check it out. And on this night in Spartanburg, South Carolina, at 73 years old, after 50 plus years, this storied career comes to an end. Funk comes out to Desperado by the Eagles walking slowly with a slight grin on his face. This match is announced as his last match in South Carolina, but I think he knows this is his last rodeo. Terry starts the match and delivers some jabs to Brian Christopher and Doug Gilbert. It's not great, but their selling makes it at least entertaining. The match is no DQ, so about 3 minutes into the match, the Rock and Roll decide it's time to break things down, and everyone brawls all over. The heels take the advantage thanks to a baseball bat and a pile driver, a little more of a beatdown when there's a miscommunication between Grandmaster Sexay and Doug Gilbert, allowing Funk to get the win one more time. Post-match, the heels have a pile driver party with the babyfaces putting over Lawler. King and Funk exchange some words, with Lawler then raising his arm in victory. And since Funk could never trust Lawler, he does cock his fist back just in case, and I love that detail. As Funk says his final goodbye to the crowd, the King reminds his old rival one more time about his feelings towards him.
Terry Funk.
Thank you,
That was a very nice, even eloquent farewell speech you just gave to everybody here. Well, I'm going to tell you, just like I told Andy Kaufman, I couldn't warm up to you if we were cremated together. I hate you, Terry Funk, and I always will.
If seeing this match and how slow and just off Funk seems to be makes you a little sad, it also made me a little sad. But then I saw his second to last match. You see, the night before in Raleigh, North Carolina, the same 6 men squared off. And that match is a lot more enjoyable. Funk comes out with that confrontational energy we're used to, his punches look more like Terry Funk punches, his selling is that classic mid-90s Funk selling. That match has more flashes of the Terry Funk of years past than his actual final match. Sure, he tries and fails to nail a pile driver, but I'll give him a pass on that one. Funk discussed the weekend with Justin Barrasso for Sports Illustrated the following week, saying he felt old walking to the ring, but once he was inside the ring, he was elated. "I was back in my family's house," said Funk. "That's where I belong, at home." When asked about having another match, Funk joked, "I just had 2 matches with Lawler, and you want to know if I'm going to come back? Come to think of it, next weekend I'm going to have my real retirement." Well, 2 weeks later, Terry Funk would come back to the ring. Kind of. Just because his in-ring career was over doesn't mean he wouldn't get physically involved. In October 2017, Funk would accompany Masada and the Sandman in a tag match for PCW Ultra in California. Funk would join in the fight and even get a little bloody in the process. On August 23, 2023, Terry Funk would pass away after years of declining health. The dirty old Funker inspired countless wrestlers of every generation that came after him, from Mick Foley and Chris Candido to the Briscoes and Jon Moxley.
But you got Davey Richards walking around with his little title belt and a mouthpiece in. It's pro wrestling, son.
Hey, brother, hey, Terry Funk ain't wearing no mouthpiece.
Hell no, Terry Funk ain't wearing no damn mouthpiece.
As Jim Ross said after his passing, Terry Funk is irreplaceable. There will never be another. I really hope you enjoyed this journey of Funk's career through his last match. I was a fan of his from the moment I saw him in 1997, and then loved him even more after seeing Beyond the Mat. So this was a great excuse to watch some classic Terry Funk stuff. Not that you really ever need an excuse. It's all great. Let me know your thoughts about this video or Terry Funk in the comments. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by subscribing or tracking me down on social media, either here or here. I'm Scott from Retrospective. Watch wrestling, love wrestling. Thanks for watching.